My name is Marcus Vance. I'm 44 years old, and until a couple of years ago, I believed that a man's life was measured by the promises he kept when no one was watching. I built a business on that principle. I built a 14-year marriage on it too. As it turned out, I was painfully mistaken about one of them. On a rainy Tuesday morning in a third-floor courtroom at the Fulton County Superior Court in downtown Atlanta, I watched my wife Vanessa look over at her lawyer and smile. It wasn't an open laugh. It was that quiet practice smirk you give when you've played a hand perfectly and the dealer just pushed the entire pile of chips your way. The judge had just handed her 65% of everything: the house in Buckhead with the marble foyer, the summer property in Savannah, and the controlling equity stake in Vance Cybersecurity Systems, the company I built from nothing in a rented duplex off Ponce de Leon Avenue with a refurbished laptop and $600 in my checking account. Vanessa sat there in her tailored ivory blazer, her lawyer's hand resting on her shoulder like a coach congratulating a prize fighter. Their legal team had spent 4 weeks painting a picture of me in sworn affidavits, a narrative that I was a controlling, cold-hearted husband who isolated his wife and manipulated family finances. The courtroom smelled of damp wool, stale coffee, and floor wax. Behind me, the court reporter's fingers clicked rhythmically on her machine. I kept my palms pressed flat against the mahogany table. I didn't clench my fists. I didn't break eye contact with the grain of the wood. What Vanessa and her high-priced attorney didn't realize was that I had sat in that courtroom every morning for 6 weeks, saying almost nothing beyond what my attorney advised. I wasn't silent because I had no defense. I was silent because I was waiting for the exact moment to lay down the only card that mattered. Nestled inside the inner lining of my suit jacket was a small black encrypted USB flash drive. Nobody in that room knew it existed. Not the judge, not my lawyer, and certainly not Vanessa. To understand how a patient man lets his entire life get stripped away in front of a court gallery, you have to understand who I was before the lawyers got involved. 12 years ago, our company was just a dream taking shape in a spare bedroom. I worked 16-hour days developing our proprietary threat detection algorithm, the very code that eventually landed us contracts with major hospital networks and logistics firms across the Southeast. I remember the night the code compiled clean for the first time. 3:42 inches the morning. The house dead silent. My face illuminated only by the blue light of 2 monitors. I didn't celebrate. I just drank a cold glass of water and went to bed grateful that I could build something secure for our future. Whenever we went to dinner parties or charity galas, Vanessa would laugh, wave her hand, and tell the guests times Marcus handles the technical busy work in the back room. But I'm the one who provided the vision for the brand. I let her say it. I didn't care who got the credit as long as my family was protected. When her mother needed an emergency medical procedure 6 years ago that insurance wouldn't cover, I sold my restored 1967 Chevrolet C10 pickup a truck. I had spent 3 years restoring with my own hands, and wired $32,000 directly to the hospital in Forey, Emory. I walked home from the bank that afternoon in the July heat, feeling useful. Useful as a man taking care of his own. 3 weeks later, Vanessa brought home a vintage Rolex she claimed she got at an estate auction discount. I didn't ask questions. I trusted the rhythm of our life. I also raised her daughter Maya. When I met Vanessa, Maya was 5 years old, riding a pink bicycle with training wheels around a driveway in Decatur. I fell in love with her mother, but I fell in love with that little girl first. By the time we married, Maya called me Dad. For 19 years, I never once made her feel like she was anything less than my own blood. During the 5th week of the trial, Vanessa's lawyer called their final witness a paid financial consultant who claimed I had intentionally suppressed company earnings to starve Vanessa out during our separation. I leaned over to my attorney, a sharp, composed woman named Sarah Lawson, and whispered times, "It's time." Sarah looked at me, her eyes narrowing slightly. She knew I had been holding back a federal fraud disclosure regarding suspicious offshore transfers, but she didn't know the exact nature of the physical evidence I had brought. I stood up from the defense table. The scrape of my chair, legs against the hardwood, echoed through the silent gallery. "Your Honor," I said, my voice steady, carrying clearly through the room. "Before this court signs the final decree, I respectfully request permission to submit supplemental physical evidence into the record." Vanessa's lawyer immediately objected, standing up with an exaggerated sigh. "Your Honor, discovery closed weeks ago. This is a desperate stall tactic by a party that has lost. Judge Eleanor Vance, a woman with 20 years on the bench who could spot theater from a mile away, looked at me over the rim of her glasses. Mr. Vance, what is on that drive? A series of high-definition audio and video files recorded 21 days ago in the executive server suite of Vance Cyber Systems, I replied. Recorded automatically by our continuous compliance monitoring system, a system my wife herself signed off on as chief administrative officer 5 years ago. The judge paused, then gestured toward the bailiff. Bring it up. The bailiff plugged the drive into the court's audiovisual system. The overhead lights dimmed, and the large monitor facing the gallery flickered to life. The video lit up the courtroom. It showed Vanessa sitting at the conference table inside our server facility alongside her lawyer Marcus Thompson. They had no idea the overhead compliance cameras were active. Once the judge signs off on the 65% division times, Vanessa's voice came through the high-grade microphones. Crystal clear times we route the 14 million from the acquisition through the Meridian Shell account in the Caymans. My brother set up the routing numbers. Marcus won't be able to trace a single dollar once the wire clears. The lawyer laughed on the recording. And the psychiatric evaluation affidavit, already filed times, Vanessa replied calmly, taking a sip from her coffee cup. He's too trusting to see it coming. He thinks we're just arguing over real estate. A collective gasp rippled through the gallery. The color drained from Vanessa's face in real time on the live feed. But that was only the surface layer. 30 seconds later in the recording, Vanessa leaned back in her chair and casually added times. I need to make sure 10,000 gets transferred to the condo account in Miami before Friday. Andre is getting restless. The lawyer frowned on screen. You're still seeing him. It's been 18 months, Marcus Times, she said indifferently. It's not a fling. I sat at the defense table, my jaw set. 18 months, put the start of that affair, right when she had gone to a leadership conference in South Florida, a trip she had returned from crying, telling me how exhausted she was and how much she appreciated my steady presence at, quote, home. Judge Vance didn't wait for cross-examination. She slowly removed her reading glasses, set them down on her bench with a deliberate click, and looked directly at the defense table. Mrs. Vance, the judge said, her voice dropping an octave into a cold, lethal calm. Do you understand the severity of what this court has just witnessed? Vanessa scrambled to her feet, her hands trembling violently against the wood. Your Honor, I can explain. That recording was taken without my explicit. You signed the corporate security policy, authorizing continuous audio and visual recording in all server quarters for federal compliance in 2021, Mrs. Vance. I interrupted quietly, looking straight ahead. It's on page 14 of your employment agreement. Before Vanessa could respond, I signaled Sarah to display a second document from the drive, a series of forensic bank statements spanning 6 years. Your Honor, I continued, there is a second matter. 6 years ago, our company suffered a catastrophic data breach when our core authentication algorithm was leaked to a major competitor for $2 million. It nearly bankrupted us. For 6 years, I believed an unknown hacker or rogue employee stole my work. I pointed to the bank records projected on the wall. 4 days ago, forensic accountants traced that $2 million wire from the competitor. It was deposited directly into a private account held under Vanessa's maiden name in the Bahamas. She didn't just attempt to defraud this court during our divorce. She sold my life's work out from under me 6 years ago, because she doubted I could build a real company. The courtroom went completely dead silent. Even the court reporter's fingers froze over her keyboard. Judge Vance didn't hesitate. She struck her gavel with a sharp, resonant crack that echoed through the high ceilings. Order in this court, Judge Vance commanded. This court is issuing an immediate emergency freeze on all personal and corporate assets belonging to Vanessa Vance and her legal counsel. Furthermore, this court is referring this matter directly to the United States Attorney's Office for the Northern District of Georgia for immediate review of federal wire fraud, corporate espionage, and perjury. 2 uniformed federal marshals who had been quietly alerted by my legal team earlier that morning stepped through the side doors of the courtroom. As they approached the defense table to escort Vanessa and her attorney in for questioning, Vanessa turned toward me. Tears were smearing her mascara, her face pale as chalk, a stark contrast to the triumphant woman who had smirked at me an hour earlier. Marcus, please, she sobbed, her voice cracking. Marcus, talk to me. We can fix this. I looked at her for a long, quiet moment. I thought about the truck I had sold for her mother. I thought about the 3:00 a.m. coding sessions. I thought about the 18 months of lies. I didn't yell. I didn't gloat. I simply shook my head once and said, "It's over, Vanessa. 3 weeks later, I sat in the top-floor corner office of our headquarters in downtown Atlanta. The board of directors had met earlier that morning and voted unanimously to reinstate me as full sole owner and CEO of Vance Cybersecurity Systems. The acquisition deal was back on track under my exclusive authority. As I sat looking out over the Atlanta skyline, my phone buzzed on the desk. It was a text message from Maya, now 20 years old, and attending college at Emory. Dad times. The message read, "Times I heard what happened in court. I know how much you protected me from over the years. I just wanted to say, I choose you. I've always chosen you. I'm proud to be your daughter." I stared at the screen for a long time before setting the phone down. For the first time in 2 years, I felt the heavy knot in my chest untie itself. Living with integrity doesn't always yield immediate applause. Often it looks like small, quiet, thankless sacrifices that go unnoticed for years. But truth has a way of outlasting drama. When the dust settles, the only thing left standing is the foundation you actually built and the character of the person who built it.
Thank you so much for watching Legends of Love 2026. Did you find today's story engaging? If you enjoyed it, please don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel for more amazing stories.